Hello and welcome to another edition of the TimeFlies podcast. I'm your host, Dariel. If you're listening to this on any of the podcast streaming platforms, you're going to hear a familiar voice. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. And you're going to see a familiar face. But we got my boy Mike in the building virtually. Mike in the building. What up?
Or virtual Zoom. Got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. Mike, what's up, man? Haven't seen you in a minute. How you been?
Maintaining, maintain.
Maintaining.
Missing the basement, missing the studio, but we're here.
Yeah, just for the viewers and listeners, we had to do it virtually because we're reorganizing the DIY Time Flight Studio. But like you said, we here. We haven't been here in a minute. There's been a lot of things happening since the last time we talked. We're gonna get right into it. So obviously, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that Mike is a Nas stan. He's gonna defend Nas at all costs. And
Yeah,
Nas, if you've been living under a rock, Nas and HitBoy have been coming out with album after album after album for the past 3 years. And unfortunately, HitBoy and Nas, they announced Magic 3 was going to be the end of the Nas and HitBoy era, essentially. And let me take that back. Not an end, but they're going to pause it. So before we hit Magic 3, there was an album that came out before that Mike and I didn't get to chop it up about. And Mike, I want to hear your takes. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm going to give you the runway wherever you want to go. I want to hear about Magic 2.
you know how we always had these debates about the King's Disease trilogy, Magic, and how you rank them. That's always a topic. I
Of
think
course.
I think Magic 2 gave a clear bottom to the list. It felt like something that they just threw out. And I believe that they just kind of threw it out there. If you listen to the production, it's a little more of a modern bounce. I feel like it was almost like Lucy's from throughout the King's Disease or even Magic, studio sessions. And it was Nas experimenting over more modern production. And that, like, with the flows. So I appreciate it from an experimental standpoint. Will I listen? Like, probably not. There was like motion was hard. It's not bad music. I just don't think it's up to the standard of what they've done together, especially because it was Magic versus King's Disease. Because Magic One, that was like revisionist history of like '90s Nas coming back in modern time. Like it was just raw sample based hip hop and Nas rapping. So when you hear Magic Two, there's an expectation there. It was far more modern, would have probably fit into the King's Disease style more than Magic, but it is what it is. And I think that they were just kind of, in hindsight now that we have Magic 3, they were just gearing everyone up.
For Magic 3.
But yeah, and I think that that's why they did it so close in time too, is because they
Facts.
knew what they were throwing out there was like more of a sampler, more of like, this has been Nas kind of messing around in here. But
The last time that we talked about Nas and Hit Boy, go check out that video. But I remember we gave a ranking out of the albums that came out so far, and I forgot where I had Magic, but I remember the biggest point that I had regarding Magic was about how many tracks it had. It only had it's the shortest amount. I think it has nine,
yeah,
right?
yes,
Nine, something like that. So it's the shortest amount out of all the Nas and Hit Boy projects. And then so we get Magic 3, right? And then we finally have the full body of work between Nas and Hit Boy. So I feel like now we can finally give like an official ranking of all these projects. Granted, Magic 3 just came out last week, so might be a little bit of recency bias, but go
yeah.
all in all, what I'm trying to say is now that I've heard all of the albums within the fluidity, within the full body of work, man, Magic Part One.
Tried to tell you then.
That's a fact. That's a fact. You did, and I'll be the first to admit it that I was definitely wrong. Yo, Magic One is,
Yeah,
bro, from beginning to end. I don't know what happened this time around. Like I just heard it differently. I've always loved Speechless. The opening to Magic is
bro.
legendary.
I think even at that point, Magic was my declared first
You
spot.
did,
And
yeah, you had it.
it still stands. Like that, there's just something about that. Even the 9 track piece was nostalgic in the sense that Illmatic was essentially 9 tracks, 10 if you count the intro that wasn't really a song. That intro, though, that you're speaking of,
I can't. Every time that song comes on, the intro and the little, oh my god, your Hit Boy fucking demolished that beat, bro.
was an abs. monster.
100%. But going back to Magic too, this is my question that I want to ask you. Okay, so I understand what you're saying as far as the production, as far as just the musicality in the album, if you will, wasn't great. But what I want to ask you is the way that they told us that Magic 2 was coming out is pretty much the way that they've told us that every other album is coming out. They put out a random message on one of the social media apps, and like a few days later, it comes out. I'm saying that to say that like I don't even think that's the reason why. You can't even point that to be an excuse. You can't be like, oh, we were blindsided and we didn't know what we were getting, because like that's how it happened. That's how Magic 3 happened. They told us like what, maybe a few days prior.
That's how I believe they all happened. Even going back as far as King's Disease 1, it wasn't like a long rollout. We got
So it really just was the music. Just the music was
it was
just like it was not up to par.
the thing is, if a smaller rollout is going to enhance the project more than it's going to hurt it. Because if you have a long rollout and it's like there's this buildup, then it gets higher and higher as the weeks go on. That abruptness actually helped it. It was strictly just it wasn't up to par with the quality of music that they put out prior. And especially if you're listening with the same ear I'm listening, and you notice the distinctions between King's Disease versus Magic, you're definitely expecting something different than you got with Magic 2,
Oh, your favorite joint off of Magic 2, you said is Motion?
by far.
Oh, not even close, really.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Dog, you know a song that, I mean, by my reaction, you're probably gonna know the answer, but you know a song like I really, really like off the album? Office Hours with 50, dog.
Yeah, I think that's worth like a conversational point. I think um
I know there's so many ways I know you could go with this, but whatever you want to go, my boy.
talk about a buildup. When you see Nas and 50 Cent reunited on the track, you're expecting something. I don't know if you remember Too Hot, the song that Nas, Nature, and 50 had from way back. I think it was on a soundtrack or something. But this is 50 on Columbia days. This is before he was shot anything. It's a
Sheesh.
classic track. If you haven't heard it, do
Nah,
yourself into that vein of hip hop,
you're
like
putting me on game right now. What's it called again?
Too Hot.
All right.
It's 50 before 50, but you hear those elements. He's harmonizing the hook. They all smoke it. Nature does his thing. It was underwhelming to a degree, but what I'll say is that a lot of people complained about how short 50's verse was, and I get it.
Yeah.
It was like 8 bars, but at the end of the day, the way he sounded
Mm.
for 8 bars that he was rapping, I was like, this is vintage 50 Cent right here. Like, you haven't heard that in a long time. So that's something that I appreciated. And even though, people who don't have the historical context didn't appreciate like his commentary, when he was just like kind of talking over the music, but even to hear him mention jungle, knowing the history here, the static that went on, how Nas was an essential point in getting 50 into the game, it was really a moment. It was. So from that standpoint, I'm appreciative of it. The music was, like I said, underwhelming, but 50 sounded good for the 8 bars that he was rapping.
50, yo, you know how much I'm not a fucking 50 stan. I fucking hate that era of music, dog, so much. And that
Yeah.
was that was when we were coming up, like getting into becoming teenagers
Yep.
and shit. So
Mm-hmm.
we were more aware of the music, and that was just I just hated that time. I don't know, 50 to me, man, is just like he's so far beyond rapping anymore. Like
And he knows it too. That's why you only get 8 bars out of him.
facts. And there's been rumors that he's working on a project.
I heard that too.
I mean, cool. Like when it drops, I'm sure he's gonna have his loyal fans check it out. But I don't really know where 50 lies within the current landscape of hip hop. It's very difficult, honestly.
He's someone, he'll
We,
always be able to make good music. It might not appeal to, certain listeners like ourselves, but he'll always be able to make good music. He just has one of those ears. He's like a Fat Joe almost. It's like they
nice.
have sense for what's going on. They're never going to fully acclimate to the climate because they're aware of their standing in the game, but they have an ear. They're aware of everything, even though they might not, present that way. And I think in the moments that you see 50 as far as music, um, I think before Office Hours, what did we have? There was like a song with Casanova. Um,
Dog, do not. I don't know anything about 50 music wise.
yeah, but on his verse, then like he sounded good. It's just it's about like to your point, if the music appeals to you. For me personally, I remember being a kid getting that Get Rich or Die Trying bootlegged, and it was a moment. It was definitely a moment. But
100%.
also to your point, that era in music, it didn't age well, and we spoke about this before, because even though like the '90s was had its gangster hip hop element, it was always kind of art first, regardless of the content. I think that got lost in that early 2000s era. I think it became too much about, yo, I'm this, I'm that. And it was so heavily fabricated that listening back to some of it now, it's like, this is terrible. I mean, that, not to say, not necessarily to say, like Get Rich or Die Trying, I think defied like you listen to that album now, it stands. You may not enjoy the content, but that album still stands
I hear
musically.
you.
It
I hear
really
you.
Dr. Dre put his foot in it. Like everyone involved just did their thing. From there on, I mean, you can make what you want out of his catalog, but
Yeah, I mean, the last thing we'll say about 50, and then we'll get back to Magic 2 and Nas and Hit Boy, is just like 50 is kind of like he's kind of in the same field as a J, as far as just like working outside of music and being on his mogul shit. 50 is more into like the TV world now. Jay is doing everything, I guess, whatever. But it's like that's what I'm saying. Like when Jay comes back to music, it doesn't matter who it like what you're doing. You're going to drop what you're doing and listen to it. And that's where I think 50 doesn't have that. He doesn't he's obviously he's not to the level of Jay because Jay is looked at as one of the best rappers of all time. We get that. But 50 is looked at as a respectable person in the hip hop landscape. But it's like when he comes back into music, you don't get that. I feel this is just my opinion. But when he comes back to music, I don't feel the same energy as far as like, oh, 50's dropping. I bet. Let's see what he's saying. I want to hear what he has to say as an older guy looking back on life, raising his kids and all these businesses.
right.
It's kind of just like, okay, let me just see what he sounds like.
Well,
You
because I
feel me?
don't think he's interested in giving like you're never gonna get a 444 out of 50. Like he's not interested in giving that perspective, or that's just the idea that I get. But also
Right.
the way that a lot of people view 50s because he's branched out so much, I think his character outgrew his
Mm.
music. So people like 50 as a character, as a personality. The shows on TV, like they enjoy 50 content. But to a large audience, especially, you know, the the younger generation, 50 had Get Rich or Die Trying, and then from there on it's all debatable musically. I mean,
Mm.
I think, if you listen to the Massacre now, you might appreciate it more than you did then coming off of Get Rich or Die Trying. But with Jay, you had, you know, there was obviously the reasonable doubt, and it kind of didn't stop for a long time. I mean, Jay, for 7 summers consecutively, we're talking about reasonable doubt to the Black Album before his first little retirement thing. There's not a bad album in there. There's
Mm.
there's not, and he was culturally he got bigger and bigger pause with every release. Reasonable Doubt, and I mean we're a little too young to remember the
Yeah.
time where Reasonable Doubt dropped, but that was like an underground release.
Right.
Then Lifetime Volume One comes, and he's this established artist, but he's still figuring out his voice. There's like the Puffy type of records. I think personally, Volume One is underrated. I
Mm.
do. I think when you look at the joints that were good on there, it's it's peak J, and he's
Mm.
right there. So Volume Two, Hard Knock Life, is Jay's coming out party. That's 5 times platinum. That is the beginning of the Jay we know now, and it
Mm.
stopped then. Then you get In My Lifetime, Volume Three, Dynasty, Blueprint Two, eh, still had its moments. The Black Album was the Black Album, and then he goes away for a little. But in that time span, you get the features. You get the Go Crazy remix. You get the Diamonds remix, which is one of the best J verses of all time. And then Kingdom Come, which is like, oh. And I think all of his albums, to be honest, all of his albums post retirement, pre 444, were underwhelming.
What were they besides Kingdom Come? I can't think right now.
You have Kingdom Come, you have, actually, I'm lying, because American Gangster was fire. American
Man, yeah,
Gangster
so it's
was like
fire.
Reasonable Doubt revised 11 years later. So I have to correct that. But you have Kingdom Come, American Gangster, Blueprint 3. It had,
Yeah,
obviously, like, it had its records. That's what I mean, is that even though the albums may have been subpar, on to the next one still plays. Empire State of Mind still plays. The
still
Empire
has
State of Mind
fine.
is number one record. So he's always been in the musical conversation, and it's spanned different generations. And then you have, obviously, Watch the Throne.
Oh, Magna Carta.
Magna Carta, and once again, Magna Carta, not a fantastic album, but it had joints that just kind of transcended. So he's remained relevant in a musical conversation for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, at the point of the Magna Carta, I think at the point of 444, that's 21 years solid in the game since his first release. So 50, there wasn't that, I guess, attention to detail musically. We're talking
Not at all.
50 comes out on the scene in 2003, and by, I think by the Kanye thing with Graduation versus Curtis,
That's like 2006,
like
2007.
that's seen as the decline of 50 musically,
Mm-hmm.
because Kanye kind of runs away with that, and the game changes. And so that's,
Yeah.
we're talking a 4 year window versus 20 years of
20
music.
years.
So
Yeah.
it's my fault to yourself and the listeners for going off on that tangent, but
Nah, it's
July,
what's needed, bro. If the people listening and watching, it's what's needed. That's why I got you on the fucking pod because all of that shit came straight from the fucking dome, baby. That's why I
like,
fucking that's why I always call you the hip hop encyclopedia, dog.
appreciate you, man.
Love that. But now let's get back to let's get back to
Yeah,
Nas and Hit Boy. All right, so we got Magic 2 out of the way. We finally gave our thoughts, our opinions, our takes. I'm glad to hear them. But now we're gonna move on to the final album of the Nas and Hit Boy era. For now, I'm gonna keep saying for now because I don't want it to end ever. So I'm gonna keep saying for now.
yeah.
But we get Magic 3. So Magic 3 comes out on Nas's 50th birthday. Magic 3 comes out on hip hop's literal 50th birthday. And we get this fucking such a fucking turnaround from Magic 2, bro. Like this dog, I was not expecting this to be so good, but it's crazy
Neither was I.
because Nas and Hit Boy is like, okay, they've shown you that they can do this consistently. They have one hiccup, and then they come back with like this shit. Like,
You know what?
yo.
The reason why I wasn't sure about Magic 3 was more so because I was like, these guys can't do this for a fifth time in a row. Like, even as a Nas fan, and I trust Hit Boy as a producer, I was like, that's at that point, if we get, coming into Magic 3 before listening, I said, if we get another really quality album out of this run is uncontested. This run, who can say that they did that? I knew as soon as, Fever, the intro
The
plays,
intro.
and then the snare kicks, the drums come in. I was like, okay, I see the foolishness, the stupid that's going, and this they've done it again. I knew it from the second I heard that, and it didn't it didn't stop, like, at all.
I ain't gonna hold you. Fever, I liked, but I ain't gonna hold you. What you just said, the moment you heard Fever, that's when you were like, okay, I know what this is. That moment for me didn't happen until I heard Tisk, which is only the fucking second track right behind Fever. When I heard Tisk, I was like,
Yeah,
yo, this is the type of time we on us. Let's
yeah,
fucking get it. And then for me, just me personally, from Tisk on down, dog, this shit is stupid, bro.
yeah.
Superhero status. I love this feeling. No Tears is a bit of a, it's a serious song and it's a little bit of a change
Yeah.
up from the previous songs,
That's
but
not in his
yeah,
in his experimental Asiatic bag right there.
right. I'm never gonna be disappointed in that. Always love to
Yeah.
hear that. Then you got Never Die with the fucking feature king from the last what 3, 4, 5 years, fucking
I
Wheezy.
mean, like, talk about, let's just pause there for a second. because when is that guy gonna stop? And speaking of someone who, I wasn't always the biggest Lil Wayne fan, and the era in time that we were together all the time, you can probably recall better than anyone. I had my gripes with Lil Wayne as a rapper.
Yeah, I remember.
Man, so this is just what you're gonna do to every single person, like even the goat. You're gonna do that? I mean, that's not. First of all, he kept the icon rhyme scheme to the end of his whatever 24 bar, however many bars that was, and he ended it with "Hi Mom." We also lose sight of the fact that Wayne like just turned 40.
Yeah.
He just turned 40. He's been in the game since 1997 as, Cash Money with the Hot Boys and all that.
Yeah.
And he's still rapping like this. Every time you hear him on a feature, it's like,
Let's keep this real brief because I really want to keep it on Nas and Hit Boy, but let's keep this real brief. Do you think we're getting a Wayne album?
we are.
Not even soon, but like, do you think we're
No,
gonna get one eventually, or he's gonna do this?
no, I think I just heard something that The Fix Before Six is a mixtape coming out before the Carter Six, and that's dropping, I think, within the next month or so. And then we'll see when we get the Carter Six. But
Mixtape?
apparently,
What mixtape? Where are they gonna drop it? That fifth is gone.
you know how that goes. That shit is an album. That should be an Apple Music.
Probably. It's interesting to see what he's gonna do for as a body of work because he doesn't need to prove anything anymore. Maybe he does to him, him personally. But I don't know, man. It's just the song is insane, and then moving forward from Never Die, Never Die, Pretty Young Girl, based on true events.
Uh,
Oh, everything.
Based on true events, people don't know. Based on true events, one is about a rapper named Half a Mil. If you listen to the Firm album, you heard Half a Mil on the Throw Your Guns with AZ, which was one of the better tracks on there. He was featured more on AZ's work than on any of Nas's stuff. I think Half a Mil was on the Firm Biz remix, but Half a Mil was a guy who was coming up. He was out of Brooklyn, and he didn't even release his first album. He was just on the come up, and suddenly, there's a lot of mystery to how it happened, but he he dies. And it was ruled a suicide because he was allegedly in the house and shot himself. That's how the story was told. But what Nas is portraying is that there was a little more to that story, which it I'm always interested, and this is what this whole saga, whether it was King's Disease or Magic, has done for me. Like it gets a lot out of Nas that you wanted way back when. You wanted to hear Nas talk about Half a Mil. You never heard him talk about that stuff. Now it's, we're 20 years removed, and he's talking about a lot of the things he may have wanted to talk about then and just didn't. But that just as a piece for anyone who goes back and listens, and I believe he name drops Half a Mil in there, if I'm not mistaken. That was really dope.
I mean, obviously we got to get into favorites, and I don't have a song that I don't have a song that I dislike on here.
Yeah, that's the thing is I'm kind of undecided on what the favorites may be here.
Yeah,
Um,
favorites plural, not just one.
yeah, off the top of my head, I mean, honestly, based on a true story two
Part two.
was favorites too, and that because that's vintage storytelling Nas. That reminded me of like I Am era Nas, like the Undying Love storytelling. Like he went into depth. It was nice to hear him tell a story like that. So off the top of my head, probably based on a true story, part two,
Mm.
Fever's there, Tisk is up there. Like I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, man. I don't have just one. I have several. I got Tisk. I Love This Feeling. Never Die featuring Wheezy. Pretty Young Girl. Pretty Young Girl goes crazy
Yeah,
when the drums hit on that shit. It's like, and it's interesting because like some of these songs, I'm like, you hear the name of the track, and you're like, I love this feeling. it's like, okay, Nas is probably gonna be talking about just like, how he's at a place in his life where he's happy, he's secure, he could like move around. And then like you have an idea in your head of what that song is gonna sound like, and then you hear what fucking Hit Boy fucking cooks up in the lab. It's like, dude,
Yeah. Even 1-800 Nas and Hit the Sample. Like my daughter Danielle gets in the car and asks for me to put that on just because of the sample. Like that's how crazy it is. Like
start them young, baby, start them young.
uh, she knows him as Big Nas because they obviously my girls know Little Nas X, so they know Nas as Big Nas. So
That's funny.
but
Big Nas in the building.
I think the overarching questions related to this run between Nas and Hit Boy and where it lands his legacy is the more interesting conversation. Only because I think Magic 3 is like we can deep dive into all the tracks. I mean, the bottom line is that it's fire. This whole series is fire. Like there's really I think that that's pretty uncontested. I think I'd like to hear someone who has an issue with, you know, Magic 3 because I've yet to hear that from anyone that appreciates and respects the music.
This is I remember saying this on the very first Nas and Hit Boy podcast that we did. I think that was when a couple of albums came out. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was Kings of Thieves 1, Kings of
I
Thieves
think it was
2.
before we even got King's Disease 3.
Yeah, it was something around there. And I said it's unprecedented. And I'm gonna stick to those words. This is unprecedented. You have 6 albums in 3 years, 2 albums a year. You got other rappers who are around Nas's age, hint hint, that are not dropping any sort of music, not even a fucking Lucy.
From a guy that
And
did
from the 6 albums, my bad, from the 6 albums, you get one album that's a hiccup, and it's not even bad music. It's a hiccup, and it flows with the state of hip hop as what it's in right now. Yeah, it's not that whole fucking drill music or whatever, but Nas and Hit Boy put together several bodies of work that's cohesive, that makes you stay interested to hear what Nas is saying, stay interested into what he's going to say, and I don't really see the debate anymore. Everyone's gonna point to Jay because obviously Nas and Jay are always gonna be linked. But like when
Mhm.
you have someone putting out albums from Nas's age, where he's looked at as the old rapper, and it's like, how do you age out of rapping? But he's giving you the fucking blueprint. Now, devil's advocate, it's Nas, so I get it, but it's a blueprint. I'm not saying they have to follow it letter by letter, but it's a way that you can look into it and be like, okay, this is what Nas did. Maybe let me try and freak it. Let me try and remix it and maybe go in a similar way, but maybe something different. I don't know what that looks like right now, but Jay hasn't put out music since fucking 444, dog.
If we're talking about someone's mind who's clearly off of music, I don't think Jay is all the way in. Like not like and Nas has a business acumen as well, but I mean, I think Nas has been someone between the two who's just been into the artistry of hip hop more than Jay has, and that's shown now. This is really like, and he said it on one of these tracks somewhere along the lines. This is like his third prime, because obviously you have '90s Nas or '94 to like '97 Nas, then you have Stillmatic Nas, and then you have this, and this is there's nobody even the
Where would you put Life is Good? Because I feel Life is Good. He had a resurgence with that album.
Life is Good is
I mean, I guess I wouldn't call it a prime, but I'm just interested in your take.
Life is Good was refreshing for a Nas fan then too, because you hadn't heard Nas rap like he was rapping on Life is Good in some time. Um, but then he disappeared again, and it's like, okay, that was good, but that was 2012.
Got
We
it.
don't
Okay,
until King's Disease one. I mean, you
that's
heard there was
fair.
the tapes in there. There was the Kanye album, but we like to forget that. Um,
Yeah, no, yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't think of anyone because when you think of the titans of that generation, you obviously, like you said, Nas, Jay, they're forever linked because same generation, they be Pac and Big are not here anymore. Wu Tang, like Ray, Ghost, Meth, they're not putting out projects like that. Mob Deep, rest in peace, Prodigy. Not really. I mean, you hear Havoc producing for other artists, and Havoc is Havoc. Obviously, you
You
have the Locks, but
you know
no,
what's so interesting about every artist that you're talking about or every group that you're talking about right now is they're all still in hip hop by doing guest features.
yeah,
None of them that all of them are doing guest features. Ray is doing I heard Ray on a guest feature. I heard Ghost on a guest feature. Like
yeah,
they still have that. I don't even want to say one foot in the door. They might have like their big toe in the door before it's like fully getting closed. So like they know what they're doing. You said something like 2 minutes ago. You said how like Nas was always more about the art, the artistry. And
yeah,
one of the things that I just want to point out with Nas is like I feel like this is so refreshing for him. I feel like it's such a big win for him because just like you said, Nas was always looked at as like the art, the artist, the artistry more as opposed to the commercialized. Like let me get with the best producer in order to get a fucking hot track so I could play on Hot 97. Nas, and again, there's that whole stigma that Nas picks bad beats. Nas, he tends to go towards the artistry, and this is why I feel so happy for him because he nobody knew that him and HitBoy were gonna click like that. But HitBoy, ever since he made Niggas in Paris, like he's been known as this guy that can make hits, right? If you want to hit, you could go to HitBoy, and hopefully you guys create some magic, no pun intended, and something will happen. But his name was like always in like the forefront as far as like commercial rap, kind of, if you will. So the fact that Nas went to HitBoy or HitBoy came to Nas, whichever way it happened, but they clicked, it gave Nas an added opportunity to be like, yeah, I'm on my artistry shit, but you know what? Now I'm on my fucking commercial bully shit. I'm gonna be commercial, but it's still gonna have some sort of integrity. It's not gonna be completely sellout. I'm still gonna be Nas, but I'm gonna be a little bit more commercial, and I could show you that I could do it on this field as well. You feel
yeah,
me?
yeah, 100%. I think Nas, from the inception of his career, everything has been different. Obviously, his like for the art, for the artistry, mentality has worked against him in a lot of areas. You get a lot of shit that even as a Nas fan, you can't really stand for. But once again, I'm going to take everyone on a bit of a time travel here, and I apologize in advance. But
Okay.
if you go back to Illmatic, nobody was doing what he did on Illmatic, meaning he had the all-star team of producers, which may seem like, common knowledge now because everyone does that. Back at that time, there was a rapper, there was a producer. Everyone had their distinct thing, their producer. Guru had Premier, Tribe had Q-Tip, uh, Prodigy had Havoc, so on and so on. Nas was the first one to say, "No, I want a little bit of all this shit. I'm gonna get Pete Rock. I'm gonna get Q-Tip. I'm gonna get Premier." That was different. On It Was Written, he got a lot of flack for that, which I think is Nas's best album. But he got a lot of flack for making records like Black Girl Lost or If I Ruled the
I
World.
rule the
Which,
world.
retrospect, If I Ruled the World is an all-time record, but at that time was him seen as selling out. And that theme kind of carries on. I mean, when you talk about um, records that came along years down the line, like I said, some may have worked against him. He might have gotten too artistic for his own good, but he's always been for the art, and this is just the evolution of that.
So what I also want to mention is like, all right, now we're having this talk, best MCs in the game, best rappers of all time, right? What box has Nas not checked? Nas got the Grammy. Nas has historical beef where he had the song from the beef between him and another artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or people say that he won, right? People say Jay won, whatever. But he has that under his belt. Rappers need to have beef in order to say what they're made of, to see if they
Battle.
make it. Exactly. Thank you. Battle tested. He has the catalog. He has irrefutable. I know you said It Was Written is Nas's best album,
Yeah.
but to the masses, Illmatic is Nas's best
Matic, yeah,
album, and it's
class.
irrefuted to the world. Irrefutably, that's a classic, right? He has that under his belt. what else did he and like I just said, he just came out with all these albums of Hit Boy, letting you know that like, yeah, I'm old, but I'm older, but I could still fit within the landscape of hip hop in today's world. And then outside of hip hop, he's doing all these business endeavors. Like, what is he missing? He
There's
literally
nothing
has
else.
everything.
There's nothing else Nas needs to prove on a music level, but that's what makes these albums so good because there is no pressure. Nas is doing what he wants to do.
Pressure. Sorry.
Pressure, another one. But
Into
and Hit Boy, I've always viewed him since he first came on the scene as one of the more versatile producers because even though like he had his big bubble when Paris came out, and then due to bad business, which we spoke about on the
right.
other podcast, he kind of on a mainstream level kind of dipped off. But if you heard Hit Boy cuts that he was producing, he was still in a bag. And he could give you the raw hip hop shit and he could give you the commercial shit. The thing is with Nas and Hit Boys, and to your point about like this artistry versus commercial, both of their styles met in the middle and it just worked. That's the whole thought process of Magic. That like it just worked, bro. And there's really no explaining that musical chemistry. And I think that they both caught on to that and they said, we need to capture this moment right now. And here we are, six
Six
six albums.
albums later, 3 years later. It's just yeah, man, it's just unprecedented. Like I don't think we're ever gonna see something like this again, where just an artist somehow links up with the producer and they have this ridiculous chemistry that is shown in the music. Hit Boy has said that he took a pause. He said he's gonna go on to work with his father who came out of prison. He said Big Hit, I think his name is.
Mhm.
He said he's gonna work with him, and he's also working at the Alchemist. What the
Yes.
fuck does that sound like, dog? As far as Nas and Hit Boy, first and foremost, do you want to see more of it,
I
or
mean,
or is this it?
do I
Like you're good with
want
this?
to? I mean, I'll never be like, nah, I can't. But I think that if they didn't come out with anything else, I'm satisfied. I'm
Five,
good.
yeah. 6 albums, 3 years, 5 out of 6.
Don't test the run. End it on a high note, like Seinfeld.
Facts. But yo, what if they keep doing it, bro? What if they do another? I mean, another 6 albums, but might be a little extensive. But what if they do like another three-parter King's Disease and it's still fucking like what the fuck are you gonna if they do King's Disease 4, 5, and 6 and it's still like up to par? What the fuck is anybody gonna say, bro?
At that point, you're just a duo. You're Mob Deep, you're Gangstar, like
Mm.
not even a separate entity when you're working together. Even at this point, this is 6 albums of quality music. There's been no, I mean, not a whole lot of guest features, especially on the Magic series. No
No.
other producers. You're essentially a 2 man group.
Facts. Yo, so what I want to do is I just want to talk about certain moments from the Nas and Hit Boy era. Moments to me that stuck out throughout all the albums, right? Um, this might come a little bit blindsiding to you because we didn't talk about this in the prep. But
Yeah,
yeah, man, I just want to just let me hear what you think about whenever I'm talking about certain moments. So I think to me, the moment, and I think everybody on Thun when he's like sometimes I text Hova like nigga this ain't over. I
yeah,
think that was like oh it's still there, yo. It's like
yeah.
re-listening to all the albums right now. That moment still hit me.
That record is just stupidity. Like, why didn't we get a Jay feature? Jay has a rapport with Hit Boy, and it's not like Jay doesn't do features when nature calls. I think that this would have been, the
On the last album, do get a
but
feature from Jay.
but that would have been a moment right there.
That would have been legendary. Yeah, I don't. Their relationship is competitive. It's a competitive relationship because
Yeah,
Nas. I think Nas put out Magic too when it was the opening of the Jay Z Brooklyn Museum
and
joint.
there's always that thing.
That's so
Where
funny, man.
they're released at the same times.
Yeah, I mean, another moment from the Nas and Hit Boy era, we got Lauren Hill's verse on Nobody on King's Disease
Yep,
2.
and
Spitting,
they both were just going crazy on that record. So
sounding
that's
like
that.
she's in shape. We got your favorite rapper Eminem on APMD. Lyrical miracle, lyrical miracle, serial hydrical.
Oh my god.
We got Michael and Quincy on King's Disease 2, talking that talk.
Yeah.
Was
Oh
that
yeah.
King? That was on King's Disease 3. My bad. That was on 3.
Yeah.
I know the song on King's Disease 3, legit sampling the Heartbreakers. That shit
Yeah.
was crazy.
Uh,
Um, the opening of Magic, which is Speechless, and then
yeah.
goes into Joe Black, and then it goes into Ugly. Are you fucking kidding me?
Stop. Stop. You know music is good when like you remember exactly where it was when you heard it. And I'll never forget. Talk about short span release. I think we found out a day before Magic 1 was being released that it was going to be released on Christmas Eve.
I
And I
think so,
remember
yeah.
at that time I was still at my old job and I was still working an overnight job as well. And I got out of that overnight job at about 5 o'clock in the morning. And the first thing I did was put on Magic. It was brick out. And I remember hearing Speechless, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is magic. This is the weather for this music. This is the Nas that I need right now. And man, that in and of itself was a moment for
I
me.
think I think Speechless. I think Speechless might be my favorite track from every. Is that when I'm thinking the song Speechless? I don't know what the fuck it is, man. It's just that piano, and it sticks out to me. It sounds so crisp. It sounds so clean, and if I don't know, it's just like I said earlier, it goes into Meet Joe Black, and it goes into Ugly. The fucking the 3 track opening sequence on a 9 track album, dog. It's like where are y'all going from here? Yeah, yeah,
Already,
y'all.
it's already a 30% success rate. You're bad at that point in baseball. You're a
Y'all
home.
already past the clouds. Like you're gonna go into the fucking
Yeah.
the stratosphere. What the fuck? All right, my boy. I hate to do this to you, man. I
Hmm?
hate to do this to you, man. But you know we gotta talk ranking, dog. You know we gotta
Sure.
try ranking, dog.
Absolutely.
So let's start off. I think it's easy with the
Yeah.
least favorite because I think yours and mine are the same.
Hmm.
Magic 2.
Magic 2. We're agreed. That also speaks to the run. If Magic 2 came out as an isolated, just like throw out from Hit Boy and Nas, you'd be like, oh, this shit's all right. But in comparison,
Hmm.
doesn't stand.
All
So
right. Magic 2 at number 6. Coming in at number 5. What's your number 5?
my number 5 is King's Disease 1.
God damn, really?
I think King's Disease, the saga, the trilogy rather, got better as it went on.
I mean, that speaks to the music.
Yeah.
I got Magic 3 as my fifth favorite, but the only reason why is because it just came out.
You're
So
trying
like
not to be a prisoner of the moment.
exactly, I'm trying not to be a prisoner in the moment. It just came out last week, literally. And as much as I listened to it, like all the other albums, they've had more than a year. But the thing is that yo, I had a hard time with King's Disease 2 and 3, bro.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because one of the first pods that we did regarding Nas and Hit Boy, like I wasn't really feeling King's Disease 2, but as time went on, it just
Yeah.
it just blended better and better and better. And I'm just like, that's a testament to Nas and Hit Boy, bro.
Yeah. My number 4, and once again, we have to keep in mind the high quality of all this music. But my number 4 is going to be King's Disease 2.
Mm.
King's Disease 2 falls at my number 4. And I mean, definitely an incredible body of work. But once again, it just speaks to like the quality of the albums that I see before. But that's the thing is that there's nothing bad to say about King's Disease 2. I mean, that's where you get your moment, your Lauryn Hill moment. Rare comes from the not Nas is good at the end of it.
So me, I had King's Disease 3, but I literally go back and forth between King's Disease 2 and 3. So as
Yeah.
far as right now, I got King's Disease 3 at my number 4.
Yeah.
Um, okay, you're number 3?
Number 3 would be Magic 3.
Dang, okay.
Yeah.
That high up, huh? The trilogy, huh?
Yeah. No, Magic 3 really like I said, as soon as I heard Fever, I said, okay. I
That's crazy.
know
Fever's the first track on the album, so it's that's insane. My three, I got King's Disease 2, but again, my three and four is I go flip flop them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. All right, so you're number two.
King's Disease 3.
Hmm.
I think it's the second best of that, and I think it was the perfect way to cap that series. That was the best of the King's Disease series. That was another one. You got that's where you get Michael and Quincy. That's where you get Thun. Man, that project doesn't really stop. I still think that the Firm reunion should have been done over the Thun beat, but that's just me.
Yeah, you said that last time. My God. Two. Okay, so my number two, I had Magic.
Yeah. So it's just the yeah. Gotcha.
I had Kings of Season One. Yo, Kings of Season One is undefeated for me, bro. I keep telling you the story, bro, but it's just the first time I heard that album, it sounded such a different Nas. It's not what I was expecting. I remember moments on the album hearing Charlie Wilson's voice for the first time, the song with Big Sean, and the way he sounded with Big Sean, the production from Hit Boy. And granted, we from King's Disease One, we didn't know what we were gonna get 3 years forward.
No,
But
nobody could have.
yeah, but King's Disease One, it was just so crisp and it didn't feel forced. It felt fluid. It felt fine, and it just really took me aback. That album is what got me to listen to Nas differently because
Made you think about all the conversations that we used to have regarding Nas.
100%. And before King's Disease One, before King's Disease One, I was listening to Nas a lot more than we did in high school. But there was still that like I don't know what it was, but there was still that something that was holding me back from just being a fan, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm a hip hop fan, so I'm gonna listen to any hip hop music that's deemed respectable, yada yada yada. So
right.
I did listen to Nas's music, but again, there was that one thing that was holding me back and saying like, no, I'm a Nas fan. And then King's Disease One, like I respected him just taking a leap and being like, "Yo, fuck it." Like, I'm an older head in the game, but I want people to know that I can still do this, that I can still fit within the landscape of hip hop, but do it so beautifully and do it in a way where it's not forced. Doing it with Hit Boy, and you can see the obvious chemistry between the two. I don't know. All of that just hit me at once, and I just felt mad respect for him and the way he pulled it off. And that King's Disease One is just never gonna change for me. It's always gonna be number one.
Yeah, I think King's Disease one, from my perspective, it was a step in the right direction as a lifelong Nas fan. You saw elements of Nas you hadn't seen in a while. Like he was rapping, the production was good. I felt like at the point of King's Disease one, they were still figuring each other out artistically. Like,
That's fair.
and I think I mentioned this on the last pod. I think you got your tracks on King's Disease one where okay, this is clearly Hit Boy leaning. This is clearly Nas leaning. That's the only album in this whole, catalog of Hit Boy and Nas collaborations where there's that distinction. From the point after King's Disease one, they became one as an artist, and they just blended together. But I think at the point of King's Disease one, you could still hear that distinction, and that was my only gripe.
Yeah, I mean, King's Disease 2, 3, King's Disease 2, King's Disease 3, Magic 3, and Magic are the albums that you have ahead of King's Disease. Like, I can't be mad at that.
Yeah, no, there's no list you could make where you could say, "Nah, you're bugging." Honestly, there's no unless you have Magic 2 at the top of the heap. But other than that, there's no list you can make out of this six project series.
I would love to hear their perspective on Magic 2. What if like we hear an interview of them two and they were like, "Yo, Magic 2 was the same energy that we had with every single other album. Like the energy was great in the studio. We had the vibes, but it just came out and it struck out." Like I wonder like
No,
is that what their feeling was, or did they know coming out that like, yo, let's just put this one out. We're not expecting much, but let's hit them on the head top with fucking Magic 3 that
you know what's funny is that I saw like something that Nas and Hit Boy put out where it was like a dialogue between them two, and even the way Nas explained the Magic series, he was like, "I really love making Magic One. That was the return to essence. Magic Two, I love Magic 2, but Magic 3, like, so it was, I think everyone
Man.
sense where it's like, it served its purpose. It was,
All right, my boy Mike, we did it, my guy.
yes, sir.
We fucking did it. We officially reached the end of the Nas and Hit Boy era. Don't go. Stay. Yo, but this is not the last time we're gonna see you. This is not the last time we're gonna hear of you because I'm trying to get you on the fucking pod. We gotta celebrate 50 before the year turns, bro.
Yeah.
And
We
I already sent you a text as far as like what that episode is gonna look like.
Yeah, that would be fun.
No, 100%. I just want to celebrate hip hop, man, because we grew up in it, we're still in it,
Yeah.
and yeah, I just want to pay homage to it. But yo, before we sign off, I know you don't like doing this social media stuff, so I'm not gonna ask you.
Yeah.
But I just want to say thank you, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. I always appreciate you taking time out of your day to help me out with this podcast. Love speaking hip hop with you. Love speaking current events, all that good shit with you. And yeah, man, we'll catch you on the next one. All right, bro.
Yeah, bro. No question.
We'll talk soon. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Peace.
Peace.